Hello. Thank you all for joining the 2024 Smithsonian National Education Summit. I know it's late in the day, but believe me, if you're already energized for what you've heard so far, buckle up because you are in for a treat. I'm Freddie Adelman. I have the joy and the honor of serving as the director of Smithsonian Associates. We are the institution's central education division. We offer thought-provoking programs for inquisitive, active learners of all ages, from an interactive museum theater program for school-age children, studio arts classes, to regional tours, lectures, seminars, courses. There's a whole wide variety of things for you to choose from, but that's enough about me. This afternoon, we are joined by 2024 Tennessee State Teacher of the Year and 2024 National Teacher of the Year, Missy Testerman. In a longstanding partnership with the Council of Chief State School Officers, which is now celebrating its 18th year, the Smithsonian has welcomed State Teachers of the Year to join us here in Washington, D.C. for professional development. And we rely on that expertise to help inform our work in education for a national pre-K to 12th grade audience. Ms. Testerman, or Missy, as she says she prefers to be called, comes to us with many, many years of experience in the classroom. She embodies the role of a dedicated lifelong learner and recently took on a new challenge by serving as her school's English as a second language specialist. Missy strongly believes in supporting teachers and encouraging them to embrace their critical position as expert education professionals who can inform decision makers about the truths of today's classroom experiences and how to meet the needs of all students. Please join me in welcoming to the Smithsonian stage 2024 National Teacher of the Year, Missy Testerman.
Thank you, Freddie. Hello, everyone. My name is Missy Testerman, and I am the 2024 National Teacher of the Year. I'm so excited to be part of the 2024 Smithsonian National Education Summit, and I'm glad that each of you are here today, too. I'm excited to learn alongside each of you today, and I thank you for your continued commitment to our country's students. I have spent the best 32 years of my life teaching in beautiful Rogersville, Tennessee, a small town of around 4,500 people located in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. This is our downtown, and it looks as if it is straight out of a Hallmark movie. This is my school, Rogersville City School. We are a pre-K through 8 school that is the only school in our system. So that means that all of our students, our staff, our school administration, and our district leadership are contained within one building. Our school celebrated 100 years of service to our community this past school year. I had taught first and second grades for 30 years when my school's English as a second language teacher told me that she would be moving at the end of the school year. Instantly, I was worried about who would advocate for my school's English language learners and their families. I had been the classroom teacher who taught the ESL students in the general classroom, and I cared about them and their families. So, at age 51, I did something I would have never predicted doing. I enrolled in coursework through Tennessee's Grow Your Own program that enabled me to add an ESL endorsement to my Tennessee license at no cost. I absolutely loved teaching first and second grades, but I have found my life's mission as an ESL teacher. These are my students. This past year, I served students from 4 continents: Asia, North America, South America, Africa, representing 5 countries: Mexico, Egypt, India, Honduras, and China. And these students represented 5 different language backgrounds. I have some interesting situations within my student group, including 2 sets of identical twins. Also, Catherine who is on the right on the next to last row, was born on March 20th, 2013 in China on the continent of Asia. Standing directly in front of her is Netta, who was also born on March 20th, 2013 in Egypt on the continent of Africa. Somehow, some way, these sweet souls ended up together, half globe in rural Rogersville, Tennessee, and they are best friends. My students and their families remind me daily what a privilege it is to be an American and what a privilege it is to be able to learn in a public school in this country. My students' families are committed to ensuring their students work hard and achieve in order to create a good future for themselves. As a result, our school's rated growth on the annual English proficiency exam is significantly above the national average. As you can tell, I'm incredibly proud of my students and the teachers who work with them each day. Each of my students and their families have a unique story, including how they ended up in our small rural town. Each of us here today have our own story. Some of us always knew that we wanted to educate the next generation, and some of us came into the profession after having another career. I feel like the theme for this summit, Together We Thrive, Connecting at the Intersection, is representative of our collective stories. And I feel as though that theme could apply to all of the paths that our lives have taken to get us to where we are now. For today, we are connecting at the intersection, and I'm glad that all of you are here. Over the course of the next couple of days, we'll be able to hear over 20 museum educators present on various topics that will inspire us, cause us to pause, and enable us to reflect on the importance of our job as educators. Since I live in a rural area where the access to museums is limited, if you'll move on to the next slide, please. One of the things that I love to do when I visit cities is to go to museums. I was in Washington, D.C. a couple of months ago with the 2024 State Teachers of the Year cohort, and to visit some of the Smithsonian museums with my family on the last day we were there. If you'll go one more slide, please. In the National Museum of American History, I watched as a museum educator explain the backstory behind an exhibit. People from the room who had not been engaged in her initial conversation began to make their way toward her until she had a room full of people listening as she told about various presidential inaugurations from our country's history. As a teacher, I was intrigued by the way she managed to invite museum patrons to learn with her by using a set of entrancing storytelling skills. I kept thinking to myself, she had to have been a teacher at one point. Teachers do this every day. She had to have been a teacher. That room was full of people from diverse backgrounds who likely had different political opinions and were from different socioeconomic backgrounds and even different parts of the world. But that lady brought them together and had all of them hanging on to every word she said. All of us here today bring our own perspectives, strengths, and insights. I love to look at beautiful things, whether those are paintings, landscapes, sunsets, or my favorite is looking at the sun rising over the horizon at the edge of the ocean. However, I am no artist. It is difficult for me to imagine how to take something and to use it to create something that's beautiful and inspiring. My friend and my school's art teacher, Missy Cole, can look at a random collection of things and create something intricate and beautiful. If you'll go one more slide. Weaving design and texture together is something that she knows how to do, but something my brain cannot do. More importantly, she's able to inspire students to do the same. It's no wonder that our youngest students often do not refer to school days as Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, but rather as art day, music day, STEM day, or gym day. Their brains are stimulated most when they are engaged in those things that bring art, science, culture, and movement into their lives. Since I am no artist, I often struggle with those decisions centered on art when someone wants to know why I think an artist used orange in a landscape or what the texture of a painting reminds me of. In those situations, sometimes I just rephrase what the person in front of me said because I'm afraid that my answer is not the correct one. The truth is, there is no one way to interpret art, music, or any other creative genre. The same is true with stories. The story is told from the perspective of the one telling it. So we could all 5,000 of us, be in an event today in the same place and tell a story of the same event in 5,000 different ways, depending on what happened to us. All 5,000 of us would be correct and telling our own viewpoint, but the lens would be different for all of us. Some of us would tell of the event being horrific. Some of us would tell of it being wonderful, and all of us would be accurate. I was once at a dinner party 4 hours from my home with many people that I didn't know. I was only there because I'd gone to visit a friend for her birthday, and her friends there surprised her with a birthday party. A lady at the party was telling a story of how years ago her children were playing on a play set at a public place when a little boy that they didn't know began playing with them. They were having so much fun going down the slide and running in and out of the play set. She had bought her children some chicken nuggets before this, and as they would take turns coming down the slide, each of them would grab a chicken nugget. The little boy noticed that, so soon he started grabbing chicken nuggets as well, until suddenly his mom ran to him from across the play set, scooped the chicken nugget out of his mouth, apologized, and then took him over to a bench where she continued to fuss at him until she took him to their car. She said that she thinks of that event a lot every time she drives by the place where it happened. As I listened to her, I got an uneasy feeling that I had watched this story happen before, but through a different angle. I asked her where this event had occurred, and she remarked that it was a set of outlet malls near Nashville, Tennessee. I almost gasped because all of a sudden I knew why that story sounded so familiar, yet strange. That little boy was my son, and I was that mom. Now, the weird part is that Nashville is 4.5 hours away from where I live in East Tennessee. But we had been on a weekend getaway when we stopped at those malls for my husband to look at a golf club. I'd taken my son to play at the play area, and he quickly found a sibling pair to play with. They ran in and out of the play set, up and down the slides, having the best time. I looked up and saw my son coming down the slide with something in his mouth. He was 2 years old at the time, still at the stage where kids stick random things into their mouth. So I scooped him up, pulled the object out of his mouth, and asked where he got it. This child did not even like chicken nuggets, but he had a full-fledged chicken nugget in his mouth. He replied that he had gotten it off the bench. So at first I assumed that someone had left it there and then it was dirty. Then I realized that he had been taking food from these people that we did not know. I was absolutely mortified. I ended up taking him back to the car because he was quite upset. The funny part is that my family has laughed about this story for years, about how our 2-year-old stole food from perfect strangers. I never gave a thought that out there was another family retelling this story and laughing about a kid who stole their food. I had absorbed that story from my viewpoint, never considering that there was another side of that story to tell. That mom and I had quite a laugh about the fact that we had met in a prior period of our lives. We shared updates on our kids, and all three of them are successful adults who do not steal food from strangers. We even remarked that maybe we needed a reunion, complete with chicken nuggets. We all have a story. We all have a background, and we all have a future. Sometimes, as a society, it feels as though there are so many viewpoints and opinions that it's hard to find common ground. But we're all connected by history and the science that goes on around us. In our case as educators, we're also bound by our continued commitment to our students and their academic and social development. All of us relish finding someone we can identify with, someone who has the shared background with us, someone who likes the things we like, and our students, they're no different. In my community, that is sometimes hard for my students until one of their teachers or I find a book that mirrors their home background, especially those featuring traditions familiar to them, such as Dia de los Muertos or the Chinese New Year parade. Their eyes light up as they sometimes hear words from the story that are from their home language, and they love the attention they feel when they become the expert on things mentioned in the book. I've never celebrated the Day of the Dead, so I have to rely on my students' lived experiences to help me explain it to their classmates. This connection through literacy empowers my students to feel pride in their heritage, and it enables them to experience a feeling of belonging. As an English as a second language teacher, I am devoted to the idea of inclusivity and equitable opportunity for all students. This includes the practice of culturally responsive teaching and learning, as well as an inclusive curriculum that affords all students access to events and people across multiple cultures and backgrounds. Unfortunately, state legislatures across the country sometimes pass legislation that interferes with students' abilities to learn about people who look like them or come from similar backgrounds as they do. In many states, including mine, there are now laws in place that restrict students' access to books and information about events that actually occurred in American history. Mandating that public schools abstain from teaching about things such as slavery and women's contributions to society does not make our knowledge base, does not improve students' knowledge base about the world that they live in. In fact, it limits their worldview and stifles their background knowledge. This type of censure also results in students not seeing representation of themselves or their culture in their classroom or school libraries. Even as alarming, it has resulted in students not having an opportunity to be exposed to other cultures, traditions, and even part of our country's history. Our role as educators is to create students who can think and solve problems so that they can go out into the world and create a good future for themselves. Our ability to do that is under attack when we are unable to expose students to history, culture, science, and art. When I was a young teacher, there was a pervasive attitude that teachers should just shut their doors and teach. People admonished me not to get involved in the politics that drive educational policy. What terrible advice that was. No matter if you live in Atlanta, Los Angeles, New York City, or rural East Tennessee like I do, it's not enough that teachers focus on only what goes on inside our classrooms, because our students, they live in the real world. It's not enough just to shut our classroom doors and teach. Our students have to leave those safe spots and go out into the real world, so we must ensure that our advocacy extends beyond our classrooms and our school doors. It's time that we leverage our powerful voices. We must speak up and be heard. Being heard means voting for leaders who will pass laws that actually benefit our students and our profession. We have the power to change things. We are voting constituents. It's time that we vote like our students' lives, their educations, and our profession matters, because all of those things do. Advocacy for this profession does not have to occur on the State House steps or on national television to make an impact. There's so many meaningful ways that you can stand up for students. When you appreciate positive actions from your legislators or local school board members, let them know. Establish those lines of communication. When you know that a policy is harmful or will be harmful to students, speak up and express that to your leaders too. This advocacy means a quick email or phone call to a legislator that's important that we teach Black history or women's contributions to society, or you affirm that LGBTQ kids have the right to feel safe at school. This also means reaching out to legislators and leaders who are advocating that all students, regardless of race, ability, gender identity, citizenship status, or belief, have the right to a high-quality education, and letting them know that you notice their work and that you're appreciative of it. The famed poet Maya Angelou once said, "I learned a long time that the wisest thing that I can do is to be on my own side, to be an advocate for myself and others like me." This is what we have to do. Speak up to protect our students, our schools, and our profession. Here's the bottom line. You are the expert, and you must use your voice to share that expertise to shape policies that will positively affect students and educators. Then, and only then, can we thrive and connect at the intersection. Think globally of issues that face us, whether those issues are the need for peace, climate change, poverty, or student mental health. Since we are each just one person, we can often feel powerless to make an impact on such serious topics. But we are members of a profession that has the power to be an agent of change every single day. By writing an encouraging note on a student's paper, or offering a fist bump after a child has completed a hard task or learned a new skill, we have the power to offer humans the confidence to keep going, to keep achieving, to keep reaching for the next goal. We have the power to change things for the better. Years ago, my school had a plumbing issue that caused an entire wing of our building to smell like sewer gas. The odor was untenable, and teachers and students began to experience nausea, vomiting, and headaches due to the nauseous fumes. While our district leadership claimed to be investigating the cause of the odor, no improvement actually occurred, and everyone continued to detect this unknown stench on a regular basis. I apologize, my notes have kind of slipped down. It's hard for me to see the slideshow. Okay. Despite a multi-million-dollar classroom and gymnasium addition, our students also experienced painful hand washing because the original portion of our building had no hot water. Again, we approached our school's leadership with this information, and we were met with the same response. Everyone was sympathetic, but no one was taking action. I had reached out to every single school board member and member of city council and even our mayor. Again, everyone felt bad about our plight, but nothing happened. A quick call to our state education association showed what our answer was, and what an answer it was. In order to force our school board to listen to our concerns, we needed to have more than 50% of our school's teachers belong to our local education association. At that time, 36% of our teachers belonged. Almost overnight, 88% of our teachers mobilized and joined our local education association. And along with the Tennessee Education Association, we entered into formal contract talks with our school board. I would like to say to you that I was brave and committed the whole time, but the reality is that I was suddenly catapulted into a role that no one in rural Appalachia wants to find themselves in, that of a bona fide union president. Suddenly, our local newspaper was very tenacious about following this saga, and it became the town soap opera. The headline read, "RCS teachers form union and want changes." so many times, I wondered if we had made a mistake poking the proverbial bear. It didn't take long before I began to hear the whispers from people at the grocery store, my church, and even my own extended family. But the reality is that our school students deserved clean water, hot water to wash hands, and decent learning conditions to have every single day. After more than 2 years of negotiations and compromises, our students had hot water and clean remodeled restrooms. So we weren't able to provide to every single child in the world, but we were able to act together and to make sure that our local students had clean water and hot water and decent learning conditions. That is acting locally, but thinking globally. And that's how change happens. And whenever you make that change, teachers then become advocates. Advocacy as an educator is also speaking up about all of the triumphs that you see students have. Our public schools perform miracles each day, and celebrating all the good things that go on in our schools should be part of every single teacher's advocacy. And the person for that job is you. Sharing our own power helps other people find theirs. And all of you are powerful forces every single day. We must be a voice for those whose voices go unheard, or those who do not have the strength to make their voices loud. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for all that you do to support students in this country.
Wow. I don't know about the rest of you, but honestly, Missy, if I could be part of your inclusive global classroom, I would roll back the years, learn a new language so I could participate. It's so inspiring. And we're getting all kinds of messages in the chat of appreciation for your advocacy, for the model that you have shown us all. And your multidimensional stories are extraordinary, and your courage in being able to share a story that some people might not be willing to share. So really huge gratitude to
Thank
you
you.
for bringing us these stories and for bringing us into these intersections. I am looking for some questions, and I also have a very special guest who is with us today. I have to say that for all of you who may not be aware yet, but the brains and the creative force behind this is the Smithsonian's Undersecretary for Education. And she's here. She's led this effort for us. And as a longtime Smithsonian employee, I have to say that it is just a delight to be able to introduce Dr. Monique Chisholm. And Monique, I understand you may have a question for Missy at this point. Do you
Sure.
want to hop on? Yeah.
Hi, Freddie. Hi, Missy. So
Hello.
I just want to also echo everything that Freddie said. And maybe if we can just put the three of us on screen, we can have a conversation together. But some of the things that I saw highlighted in the chat, Missy, was just really first a thank you for giving voice to so many issues that the teachers are facing across the nation. There was just a reverence for that and people saying thank you. I also saw a number of comments in the chat that related to, going ahead and poking that bear and finding the courage and the strength to do that. Could we talk about that just a little bit with you? I know that being the National Teacher of the Year, you have a big platform, and I know that you're planning to use that in a number of different ways. But as an ordinary person, how do we muster that strength, that courage to really engage in the conversations that you just kind of helped walk us through, advocating for Black history, talking about women's issues, making sure that we're talking about, sustainability and science issues in the classroom. What's your advice and how have you approached that?
I feel like that all of us, every single one of us, has that inner compass that tells us, I know this thing, but finding the courage to actually speak up, speak out, and even speak against things is the hard part. For me, the entire situation with my students' learning conditions was an incredible catalyst to begin that, because I knew deep in my heart that those students deserve decent learning conditions. They weren't going to be able to change it, and no one was going to change it unless we made so much noise that they had to deal with us. There were multiple times during that process that we offered, different ways of solutions, and we were met with resistance. But my advice to anyone is, if you see something that is, or if you see something that is wrong, when you know that your students are going to benefit from your advocacy, you don't really have a choice but to speak up. If you don't do it, then who will do it? And what I've found through the years, Monique, is that once you do speak up, you will find out you have other allies out there. A lot of times we think, well, I'm the only person who thinks this. And then when you say something expecting a lot of backlash, you actually find out, no, there are a lot of people who think like I do. I just said the quiet part out loud. And I think that whenever people see others speak out, it gives them the courage to speak out. And that's what I hope teachers will take back as part of my message. They are the experts, and they need to be the ones speaking out about educational policy and things that positively affect students.
Yeah. One of the questions that came up in the chat, Missy, is about the family reactions to the teachers forming the union and speaking out. Can you talk a little bit about your students' families?
Sure. So in the beginning, like I said, this is rural, ultra conservative East Tennessee. And the newspaper led with that huge headline. We were trying to avoid calling it a union, obviously. We were trying to call it an association. But the headline was RCS teachers form union and want changes. And so instantly I feel like there was backlash. Like, who do these people think that they are? But the newspaper coverage that we dreaded so badly, the first day that came out, I was like, oh no, that ended up being our absolute best ally, because that coverage reported the types of things that we were talking about during negotiations. And I think that once parents read that and they realized that the things that we were talking about that at that time were not pay, they weren't even teacher benefits. They were about things that directly affected their students, their well-being, and their overall health. And I think for us, that actually helped turn the tide of public opinion. There's a part of my National Teacher of the Year application where I actually tell another part to that story. My dad was a salt of the earth factory worker, blue collar, Vietnam War veteran. I mean, gruff guy who was just a big bear, had a heart of gold. And I purposely had not told him like any of this was going on, what we were planning to do, because I knew he was so anti-union. The day that newspaper story came out, he called me. And I dreaded answering the phone. And so I answered it and took a deep breath. And he said, and I quote, this is a quote, "I just read how you've gone and started a union." And so I took a deep breath, and then I explained that these were the conditions that my son and my daughter, who were his grandchildren, were having to endure every day. And by the end of the conversation, his reply as we closed the conversation was, "A lot has changed since back in my day, and I'm proud of you, baby, for taking care of those kids."
Wow, it's quite the family connection. Thank you for sharing that. One of the questions that came in the chat has to do with your own influences. Who inspired you? Who were the influential teachers in your life? And clearly your dad, but can you tell us a little bit about some others?
Sure. So I think I wanted to be a teacher from the moment I walked into kindergarten. I just fell in love with school the very first day that I was there. My teacher, her name was Mrs. Brown. She was wonderful. I went home and put on a cardigan because she had worn a cardigan with her dress. So I felt like I needed one as well. And along the way, I had really, really great teachers who paved the path and showed me what good teaching was like. But when I started teaching, probably the most single influential person on my development as a teacher was my mentor teacher. Her name was Mary Jo Weaver, and she taught first grade next to me. And she just took me under her wing and she guided me with love. But when I goofed up, she would support me in front of others and then privately be like, "Why did you do that?" And so that kept me from losing my spark, but yet kept me in check. And she was just the type of mentor that I think if we could have are new to a new role, have that kind of mentorship, I think the teachers would be a lot more energetic about in the field. She was just phenomenal to work with. And I've been so blessed to work with so many great teachers and colleagues throughout the year, throughout my career.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Couple more questions have come in about any advice or mentorship that you can give us about working and supporting students who are English language learners and come into the global classroom or come into American classrooms in the global sense.
Sure, that's a great question. Most communities across this country are now dealing with a lot of newcomers, students who are just entered into our country, and not only are they learning English for the first time, they're learning an entire new way of life. And the reality is, for those students, before we can do anything else for them, they have to feel safe. They have to feel welcome. They have to feel safe. They have to feel like they have an ally at school. And once they have those things, they're able to kind of, the technical term is lower their affective filter, which actually means feel at ease so that they're calmed down and not anxious and they're able to learn. But, moving past that, it's just to start small, celebrate every single victory, and enjoy that you get to be part of watching someone become multilingual. In our country, less than 20% of the population can speak more than one language proficiently. And we have really young kids in elementary school, 6, 7, 8-year-olds who are already doing that. So the fact that you get to be part of that journey is just an amazing occurrence. So enjoy every single minute of that. And I guarantee that child remembers you long, long, long after you leave the teaching field.
I love how you reframed that. That was just really beautiful. That the children are multilingual and we can learn from them. That's extremely helpful. Monique is got all kinds of questions.
I
Monique,
do
can
have
I
a
call on
question.
you? Yeah, please.
I do have a question. See, this is so wonderful. I wrote down what you said. I'm gonna maybe make this little quote for my board for myself, where you said, saying the quiet part. It's our responsibility to say the quiet part. So that was so powerful for me. It spoke to my heart. But here at the Smithsonian, we also have recently embarked on what we're lovingly calling a rural initiative. We're going to get a better name for it than that. But our goal is really to connect and reach rural communities across the nation. And we want to do that in a way that really helps to meet the needs that are identified by those communities, not something that we're superimposing upon the community. So I don't want you to speak for all rural communities across the nation, but since you do have this time, what do you want us to know and remember about rural communities?
Oh, wow. So I want you to remember that rural communities are like much of all of the urban areas. They're devoted people out there teaching, being nurses, doing all of their things, trying to be a change maker within their own community. We often don't have the resources that you find in other areas. just because of the lack of industry and large companies and so forth. Most of the employers in my area, even though we do have manufacturing, are smaller employees. They don't have the resources of ExxonMobil to come in and help us with, drones and things like that. So our teachers in rural areas have to get incredibly creative about ways to bring experiences from outside our rural area into our students. A lot of our students, they're only exposed to just a few career choices because they've never seen a lot of the other things in action. And that's just so important, letting students know what types of opportunities are out there so that they can go on and use those opportunities to create a better life for themselves and maybe have chances that they never would have dreamed for themselves before.
And we've got a mix of teachers here among the 5,000, some who are seasoned and some who are just setting foot into the classroom for the first time. And so here is a question that says, would you recommend anything different than what you've talked about for new educators so we can get started on the right foot? Or is the advice you've given universal to all?
Oh, I think especially for new teachers, it can be amended. If you are a new teacher, find someone that you really admire, someone whose teaching style you like, and someone that you would like to maybe be in 10 to 15 years, that type of teacher. And, I know a lot of schools have formal mentoring programs where they assign you a mentor. I also know that sometimes that isn't always a perfect match, but I promise you, if you will go to that person that you see yourself being in 10 years and you just say, hey, can you give me some pointers? Can we partner together? Number one, you're going to recharge that person's battery because they're going to feel so honored that you've done that. Because, as an older teacher, I so respect what younger teachers bring to us. It's a level of energy and enthusiasm that we all need to keep throughout our careers. And all of the research shows that school climate is, like people who are at the mid-career point, 10 to 15 years, and veteran teachers. And if you will ask for their leadership advice, they'll be glad to give that to you. And that's also going to enable you to have another ally, another partner within the building. This is hard work and we all need each other. I would also say that you need to remember that you have a life outside of school, and it's okay to protect that and to do the things that you like to do, the things that make you you, and the things that enable you to come back into that classroom on Monday morning recharged and to just have a fabulous week with your students.
Wish you were my mentor. No offense, Monique.
I would bet you are a great mentor.
I'm taken.
I am the lucky one here.
Yes.
Missy, is there anything else that you didn't get a chance to say? We've got just a couple of minutes left. Any last comments to share with all of our viewers here? Otherwise, I will turn it over to Dr. Chisholm.
I'm just so thankful and honored to be here today, Freddie. I appreciate the opportunity from the Smithsonian. As a teacher who digs every single year for affordable in-service, I appreciate you guys offering this opportunity, and having it virtually allows even people like me who are in Little Rogersville, Tennessee to join in and to hear these global type conversations. And to all of the teachers who are joining either virtually or in person, thank you for everything that you're doing for America's students. I said it, the state teachers got to eat at the White House a couple of months ago, and at the White House I said something I strongly believe. Teachers are the hallmark of democracy. We make democracy happen because we make every single profession, every single one of them, possible. And I appreciate everything that you do for America's students.
Nancy, your words are so inspiring and encouraging. And the chat box, we'll have to make sure to send you the comments.
Yes, please
there's a lot of thank yous, a lot of people who are very inspired by what you've shared. A lot of people want you to be their mentor. And everybody is saying that they can definitely see why you were selected as our National Teacher of the Year. Thank you for representing the profession so beautifully. Thank you for giving voice to some of these complex issues that we are facing. And thank you for joining us for the 2024 National Education Summit.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much.
Well, this has been an amazing day. I have been so inspired by what I've been able to learn from our presenters this today. You know, starting off really thinking about the future of learning with Richard Galata, and then moving through our wonderful breakout sessions where I have now so many real brass tacks examples and solutions for teaching and learning in the classroom. And then ending the day with this really powerful message from Missy Testerman to really encourage all of us to find that voice within us to advocate for what's best for students, even though sometimes it might feel awkward or scary, but to ask ourselves what really matters most for students. I really thank you all for being here with us today. It's been a fabulous beginning to the summit. We have a lot more to come tomorrow. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And we look forward to seeing you if you're going to join us in person. If not, we look forward to seeing you online tomorrow. Have a beautiful rest of the day. Thank you.